All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 2. That is right, week number 2 of your 9449 class, which is your business reference class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Chase K. Austin, and what we're going to do this week is we are going to have a state of the course update. Then we are going to review the worksheet for last week, which was the Business Source Complete / Business Source Premier worksheet. And then I am going to close with whatever thing is worth closing discussing. So we're going to do all that. You can speed this video up because I know I talk slow, but let's go ahead and get into it with the state of the course update first. First things first, yeah, I do want this announcement to be loud and clear. So even though it is in the course and you've hopefully already read it because of that, I'm still going to go over it here. So the directions weren't clear, and so that's my fault, and so I'm taking full responsibility, but the directions are clear now. So week 1, you got a break, but starting in week 2, you need to actually use the database in order to answer all of the questions unless otherwise noted. Now, there will be a point where I know that there is one worksheet where you're going to have to find the definition of beta. And I do say you can use Google to find the definition of beta when you get to that worksheet. But that will be the only time, I repeat, the only time where it will be acceptable to just Google instead of using the database. And what I want you all to realize is that the students that you're going to be working with, if you're an academic business librarian, or the patrons in the public library, they tend to already know how to use Google. So if all you know how to do is use Google, then you are not of any use to them. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth of the matter. So you've got to get your feet wet and start using the databases. Now, another thing that I hear complaints from people all the time. I'm not talking about students here in the program. I'm talking about, I hear complaints from librarians all the time. And remember, I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. I started in 2008 with my first librarian job. But I entered library school in 2006, so I've been in this field for 19 years, y'all. And so over the course of that 19 years, yes, I've heard people repeatedly say that library school didn't teach them any practical skills, it didn't teach them how to use any databases, yada, yada, yada. And so I try to remedy that. I try to remedy that in 7314, and I also try to remedy that in this class, and that's why you all have to actually use databases in this class, okay? So you're going to have to get your feet a little wet, and if this takes you out of your comfort zone, I am sorry, but the reward is greater than you think because you're going to have a leg up, and that's why I believe a lot of you took this class was so that you could have a leg up on the competition. And if you want that leg up on the competition, hey, you got to get your feet a little wet. You got to go in there and use the databases a little bit. You can't just Google all the time because people generally know how to use Google. So if that's all you can do, again, what are you actually going to help somebody with and how? Okay. So yes, now if you don't know how to access the databases, I'm actually going to show you how to do that right now. All right. So if you were, let's say that you were, let's go here. And let's go to, so like this week you have to do the Mergent database, right? So if you need access to Mergent, what you can do is you can go to databases here. And then you can go to M. And you can scroll down until you get to Mergent. Scrolling. Okay, here we go. All right, Mergent Online. All right. And then it's going to ask me for a login, or maybe it's going to bypass the login since I've been logged in before. Okay, so it's bypassing the login. And this is Mergent. And all of the questions on your worksheet for this week, you can answer with this database. You should not have to leave the database or go to Google in order to find your answers. You need to get your feet wet. You need to start exploring the databases a little bit. Maybe watch a tutorial if you need to. And I will say this, even though you can't, but let me be clear, and I hope this is clear. I hope you all are understanding this. You are allowed to do this, and this is something that a lot of librarians do, so it's fine if you do this. You are allowed, when you are in Mergent, to still go to Google and Google, for instance, how do I find as an example, return on assets, ROA. How do I find ROA or return on assets in Mergent? You can Google that to get the steps, but then you actually do need to go into the database to actually do the thing. Do not just Google the answer. You need to actually, yes, you can Google directions. You cannot Google answers, but you can Google directions, if that makes sense. So if I were to ask you what was the ROA at some point for some company, you can Google to find out, okay, how do I find ROA in Mergent Online? That is acceptable. But once you find those directions, you actually have to use this database. You have to use the Mergent database to actually follow those directions and then find it. And that's the thing, because some of you who were using Google, and it was quite a few of you who were using Google, so I don't want anybody to feel like they're being singled out here. It was a few of you who were using Google, and that's why I'm excusing, that's why I excused some of you on some of the questions last week. If, there's a big if this, I excused you if you got the question correct and if you were able to sort of make sense, logical sense of what you were doing. But if you got the question wrong, you got the question wrong. So with that said, yes, what you can do is Google directions on how to find something, but then go in the database and actually find it with the database, not with Google. And I will say that some of you who are using Google to answer the questions got the questions wrong. And that is why we don't rely on Google, is because the answers that we're getting in the database are going to be more accurate than something that you found somewhere random on Google. Now, granted, I do realize that some of you hit Google like the NAICS website and that sort of thing. But even then, there are limits to what the NAICS website does. And there are things that the databases do that go beyond what the NAICS website does. And so that's why, because that's why so many people are paying all this money for these databases. Like when I was at Coastal Carolina, we were paying $20,000 a year for Mergent alone. Okay, so these databases are expensive, and there's a reason why we pay so much money for them, is because they give us the best information. And what we find on Google may or may not be the best information, but you don't want to take that chance. Okay. All right. So that's the big guy there. So please be understanding of that. If I am going to, for those of you who, for those of you who want to do your business plan within a group, I am going to make those groups later tonight. Today is March the 24th. It is Monday, March the 24th, and I'm going to make the groups tonight for those of you who decided that you want it to be in groups, okay? And so if you decided that you wanted to be in a group, I'm going to assign you a group tonight, and I'm going to create a space for you to communicate with your group within Canvas, but you all can also exchange contact information and that sort of thing, okay? So for those of you who did want to be in a group, be on the lookout tonight, and you will be assigned your group tonight. So that was the big thing that I really, the two big things that I really wanted you to be aware of are, again, when you're doing the worksheet, actually use the databases. And then also, for those of you who are not going to do your business plan solo, be on the lookout for your group assignment later tonight. For those of you, now you don't have to watch these on Monday, so don't feel bad if you're watching this and it's Thursday as opposed to Monday. You're fine. You're fine. But yeah, if you wanted to be in a group and you're watching this on Thursday, you've already had your group assigned, and that's okay. Don't feel like you missed anything by not watching this right away. All right, let's see. As far as other things coming up on the horizon here. So on March the 30th, you will, let's close out of that. On March the 30th, that's when your Mergent worksheet will be due. And also you will have another discussion board prompts. I have not looked at your discussion board prompts from week 1 yet, or your discussion board posts from week 1 yet, I should say. Excuse me, but I'm going to assume that you all did fine. I did kind of glance at them, and it looked like you all did fine for the most part. So if you don't get feedback from me this week about something about your week 1 discussion board prompt being unacceptable, then that means that you did fine, and just stay the course and you'll do fine for the rest of the class, okay? If there is something wrong with your discussion board contribution for week 1, I will let you know as I am grading this week, and then you will have the opportunity to correct whatever you did wrong in week number 2, okay? But yeah, I'm going to assume it does look like I've got a good group of students here, a good group of bright students here, and so yes, I'm going to assume that you all did fine on the discussions, and if you don't hear anything negative from me as far as feedback related to your discussion board posts, then yes, that means that you did perfectly fine, okay? One of the things though, oh, thank you, Holy Ghost. Okay, one of the things that I did want to remind you all of though is this. So here's the thing, because some of you did lose points for incorrect answers on the worksheets. I get that. That's part of the class. But, because I know everybody wants an A, there is a fail-safe within this. And here's your fail-safe. So if you lose points, you can make them back up this way. And this will be the case with all of the discussion board posts in here. Note, in order to get both points for this week's discussion board prompt, you must post your own original posting and respond to at least one classmate. Your original post is worth 1 point and your response is worth 1 point. Additional posts and responses are welcome and may result in extra credit at my discretion. All right, so what that means is, so yeah, some of you got like 3s and 4s out of 5 out, you got like a 3 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5 on your Business Source Premier / Business Source Complete worksheet. If that applies to you, don't worry. I know some of you are like, oh man, you have to get at least a 93 to get an A, and I've already lost 2 points and the class just started. How am I going to avoid, missing more than 7 points? That is where the extra credit comes in. So if you find yourself a little worried because you're losing points for wrong answers and that sort of thing on the worksheets, then make those points up by doing a little bit extra in the discussion board area. It's just that simple. This class is built for your success, and I want you all to realize this. This class is built for your success, so don't think that if you lose points on the worksheet, then that's going to take you down to a B and there's going to be nothing you can do about it. No, those points that you lose on the worksheets, you can make those points up with extra discussion board responses to your classmates, okay? So keep that in mind, and if you do that, that is a way to try to keep yourself within the A range, all right? So again, just be mindful of that. What else is on the horizon? Is anything on the horizon that you need to be aware of outside of that? Okay, yeah, you all are fine for this week outside of that. And next week next week is April. Man, this this year is flying by. Next week will be April, so yes, do your emergent worksheet and your discussion board for week 2 this week, and you will be golden. All right, let's see. Okay, yeah, so outside of that, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and review the emergent worksheet with you all. So let's go ahead and not the emergent worksheet, I'm sorry. Dr. Jason's messing up. The Business Source Complete / Business Source Premier worksheet. We're going to review that now. And I am going to show you all the right answers and how to find them. Now, I will say this. There is more than one way to... Come on. Okay. There's more than one way to find some of these answers. And so some of you all found answers in ways that were not necessarily how I found them, but they still weren't wrong. And you don't have to... Here's the thing. There's one thing that I think some people struggle with is that there's more than one way to be right. Okay, so there are a lot of situations in life where you can be right even when you're doing something differently from how somebody else is doing it. There's too much of an attitude these days of people thinking that, oh, if you don't do it my way, you're doing it the wrong way. That is not how I approach this class, and frankly, that's not how I approach life either. There are going to be people who do things differently from how I would do them, and if those ways are effective, then I'm not going to say those people are wrong, okay? So yes, some of you did things a little differently from how I did them, but if you arrived at the right answer, then that's what we are mostly worried about. But I am going to show you the way that I would answer these questions. So let me go ahead and pull that worksheet up. All right, and so we're going to go through these one by one. The first one, question number 1, is what are 2 NAICS codes associated with the company Revlon and how did you find these NAICS codes? Now, I just put in little dummy answers because I was doing something else. But now I'm going to put in the real answers and let y'all see how all of that works. Okay, so we're going to go to Business Source Complete or Business Source Premier. Again, for those of you who don't know, we also had a question about that in the discussion area. One of your classmates did ask me, he was like, well, you said use Business Source Complete, but we only have Business Source Premier. Can we use that? The answer is yes. Veteran librarians tend to, there are two sets of databases that veteran librarians like myself who have been doing this a long time, they just kind of use the terms interchangeably, and I apologize for that. So when it comes to Business Source Premier and Business Source Complete, those are two tiers of the same database. And the same is true for Academic Search Premier and Academic Search Complete. They're just two different tiers of the same database, okay? So with basically Complete is your complete tier, and then Premier is a slightly cheaper tier of the same database that doesn't have quite as much content, but it's got the overwhelming majority of the content in there. All right, so this is Business Source Premier, and so let's answer that first question here. So what are two NAICS codes associated with the company Revlon? Here's what I would do. I would go to company entity here, put in Revlon, search. All right, and you're going to get something like this, market line profile for Revlon, and a lot of you all did see that. And so when you scroll down, you will see that when you go into this record with the company profile, what you're going to find is you are going to find NAICS/industry codes. And we've got 4 codes listed here. I told you I wanted 2, so you could have picked 2 of those 4. And when you are doing, it's very helpful to know the NAICS codes because you can actually apply these NAICS codes to a bunch of different databases, not just the Business Source Complete. If you wanted to do some industry research related to Revlon versus company research, and you wanted to go into IBISWorld to do your, if you wanted to go into IBISWorld to do your industry research as opposed to your company research, then you could actually copy and paste this NAICS code because this is your industry code here. You can copy and paste that, and then you can do some searching in IBISWorld with that NAICS code, and Revlon will be relevant to your results, but so will other companies that operate within that industry, okay? So any 2 of these 4 answers would have been acceptable. And for the most part, most of you actually did do this right, and most of you did select these top 2 up here and answer that question correctly. So that's how you would answer that first question, or the best or easiest way to answer that first question. All right, question number 2, the SWOT analysis for Walmart. Again, we can, there are different ways to do this, and you all had a bunch of different ways that you all approach this, and really all of your ways are pretty much right. So if we go into Walmart here, all right, and we've got a SWOT analysis. We've actually got a very recent SWOT analysis from 2025. So I could have updated this question a little bit better, but I was updating so much in this course that some things, I'll be honest, I just had to kind of let them slide. So, but yes, we'll go to the, what we can do, and several of you did do this, can go to 2017. And then you can go to date first. Now, this is not, again, this is not the only way that this can be done, okay? There are other ways to do this. I am just showing you the way that works for me and my brain, and this is the quickest way that I went about doing it. But some of you actually may have gotten your answers quicker, and that is no problem. Especially, I'll go ahead and do this now because I'm not feeling like going through all of those. So you can do SWOT here. And then was that our date? Yes, 11/23/17. So we've got that. Limiting this to 2017 and then doing date newest first would get me there. Okay. So you go in there, and then if this looks like it's the right one, then you can go in here to the PDF full text and look at the document, and it's asking what are the 3 listed threats. And a SWOT analysis is just that. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Again, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That is your SWOT analysis. So when you go here, you will see for SWOT analysis, your strengths are here, your weaknesses are here, your opportunities are here, and your threats are here. These are your 3 threats, and I think that everybody who actually went into the database got that question right. So kudos to you all on that. And if you didn't use the database, again, I apologize, but you probably got excused on that particular question, okay? All right, scrolling back down. So this one's pretty easy, and most of you got this one right, but there were a few of you who still got this one wrong, so we're going to go into this one here, but this one's pretty easy. So what is the word count for this article? Really all you have to do, nothing complicated here, okay? First of all, we'll take that out. We'll also take this out, take that out, and then we'll switch this over to title. And here we go. And so when you click this, you will see one of the items in the, and you need to familiarize yourselves. You need to familiarize yourselves with the items that are going to be in a catalog record. So one of the items in this catalog record is full text word count, and that is 271. So you had 271 words, and so that should have been your answer. And again, most of you got that one right. This one gave a little bit of a curveball, and I actually accepted 2 different answers on this one. So the writer Julian Alston. Here's there are other ways to do this, but this is just the way Dr. Jace's brain works. You can put the name Julian Alston in there, and then you can come here and click that. Now, another option could be you could come here and then do an author search and then put in Alston, comma, space Julian. But what I like to do is I like to actually do a freeform search first, and that way I can get the controlled vocabulary. And so the controlled vocabulary is here. And when you click that, you will get these results. And actually this is listing as people. And so there are, again, 2 acceptable answers. One was, and a few of you got this one, was the Australian Journal of Agriculture and Research Economics. However, there is another way to go about this. And so if you go about it the other way, you're going to get a completely different answer. And so that's why, again, most of you, pretty much everybody got one of the 2 answers. You either got that Australian Journal, or you're going to get the one that you're going to see now. And this is, again, just doing it the old-fashioned way, Alston, comma, space, Julian, and then changing this to author. If you do that, instead of 13 results, you're going to get 64 results. And what you're going to see is within these 64 results, this one is going to be the one that you're going to come across the most often, the American Journal of Agricultural Economics. So again, there were 2 different ways to kind of search this. Sorry that Dr. Jace threw you a trick question, but you need that every now and then. So there were 2 ways to go about this, at least 2 ways, and depending on which way you went about it, you were either going to get the American Journal of Agricultural Economics or the Australian Journal of Agricultural and Resource Economics. You were going to get one or the other. But regardless of which one you got, I marked you right because, again, I was aware that there were 2 different ways to kind of search this that both made sense, but they were going to both arrive at different answers. And that's something that I do want you all to kind of internalize as well. Unfortunately, there are going to be situations wherein the way you search is going to affect the results that you get. And there's not really much you can do about that because people just have different ways that they search things, all right? Different librarians search things different ways. And so that does cause me to need to be a little bit lenient with you all because there are going to be times when the way you search is going to get you valid answers that are still not exactly the answers that I got. But that's why I tell you to tell me how you got there, because if the way that you got there makes sense, and both of those different ways that I just showed you made sense to approach the Julian Alston thing, then you would see that 2 searches, 2 different search techniques are going to get you to 2 different answers in this case. But I'm going to be lenient and say, hey, yes, both of those answers make sense. The search process was credible. and what you have produced works. All right. So that is the question for, or that is the answer for question number 4. And then we just have question number 5 here. Most of you got question number 5 right, and this one is very easy as well. But some of you, I think, did rush a little bit and got this answer wrong, but that is okay. So the final question was, when doing an advanced search, changing the field to TK will cause the database to search by what type of information? And how did you figure this out? This is very simple once you're used to EBSCO databases, but if you're not used to EBSCO databases yet, then this is not quite that simple. Here's what you have. All you have to do, this is the advanced search. It defaults into the advanced search, as you see there. You got basic search over here, but we, again, are going into the advanced search, which it defaults into. And what you can do is just click this and let the drop menu go down, and you will see that TK is ticker symbol. Now, there were a few of you who I think, again, might have rushed a little bit, and you gave me the answer for TX instead of TK, which I do realize that X and K, they kind of look similar. But yes, make sure you are going for the information that you are being asked for. Patrons want the information that they ask for a lot of times. Now, I will say this, and you all may remember this from 7014 from the reference class. I do say that patrons usually ask for the information they want. But when I say usually, I mean probably, probably about 60% of the time they do that, 60 to 65% of the time. But as you all know from your reference class, there are a lot of people who don't exactly know what they want. And so they don't do a good job of formulating their question because they're not even sure of how to articulate their information need. And that's something that we have to be aware of too. But in this case, yes, just assume that somebody asks you, okay, what does TK mean for the ticker symbol? Assume that they do mean, what does TK mean as far as the field option? Assume that they do mean TK and then just give them that answer, which is ticker symbol. So that is how all of that works. All right, and that is your worksheet. And now we are going to go back into the class and I'm going to say a few other things. All right, so also, again, I'm sorry that you all are not getting your spring break. This does week 2, unfortunately, based on how Mizzou made the calendar. Week 2 has to go this week. So while everybody else is on spring break, you are going to be joining Dr. Jace in doing this and doing your work for week 2. But for those of you who are concerned and are like, man, I didn't get a spring break because I took this class with Dr. Jace, I don't get the spring break either, okay? Because spring break for professors is when we actually catch up on grading, and also I'm teaching this class and monitoring this class, and then also I've got some committee work and some publication stuff I have to do as well. Spring break is not spring break for professors, just so you all know. It's more of a catch-up week, all right? So I hope you can take some solace in that. Don't think I'm taking it easy this week. I am not. But yes, so this week we are going to get into that company information. So your goal is to, students will begin learning helpful resources for company, nonprofit, and small business research. Additionally, concepts for business librarianship and academic libraries will be introduced through readings and videos in this module. So you all got some introductory information on what it's like to be a public business librarian in last week's module. This week, you are going to get your introductory information on academic libraries. However, again, and I mentioned this in the, in the week 1 check-in video, but I know that one was super long, so you probably don't remember. So I'll just mention this again. You're actually not going to see your interview with an academic librarian until week 4, and that is because there's too much going on in week 2. If I had to cram that interview into week 2, and week 3, there's also way too much going on. So if I had crammed that interview into week 2, you all would just severely hate me. It would be too much work. But you all have things you need to do. You do need to do your discussion board post. You do need to do your emergent activity worksheet, and you all do need to read over these materials, okay? But these materials are going to make you better, and again, some of these things are very important. This is co-written by Steve Kramer, actually, so that's who I did the interview with. But these things will give you a little bit of a introductory idea of what it's like to be an academic business librarian, okay? And that is something I did for 1.5 years myself. And it was a good, secure, stable job. I enjoyed it, and I came to Kansas City because I thought I was being called to something higher. But boy, I do miss Myrtle Beach because I was working at Coastal Carolina University, which is basically in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and those were the days living in Myrtle Beach. But I'm happy to be here as well and to finally be a family man. All right, so yeah, you will read over these. You will read chapters 3 and 6 of your textbook. Please check out those also those lectures from Chris LeBeau. They are very helpful. And then optional. No, the reason this is optional in part is because there are a bunch of these nonprofit series videos, so you probably won't even have time to look at them all. But also, these are centered on an assignment later. So there is going to be an assignment later where you have to watch either a nonprofit video, or for those of you who weren't assigned a nonprofit video, you were given another video. But you are going to have to watch and review a video later in this course. So if you don't want to look at these right now, you don't have to. You don't have to look at the Library of Congress Company Research LibGuide, but it may be helpful for you to do that as well. But these optional things you don't have to look at, but I do recommend that you look at them. All right. And that is pretty much it. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Hold on. Okay, so I apologize, and I'm going to fix the syllabus. So actually, yeah, your reaction to the nonprofit workshop video, that's not due until April 27th. So I did have to update the syllabus quite a bit this semester from the last time I taught the course. And I apologize because, yes, what you are seeing there is when you see this is not due this week, and I'm going to go ahead and take that out. I apologize. That is something you can do this week if you want to, especially since it's on topic with what you're doing this week. You can work ahead, but that assignment is actually not due until April 27th. So I'm actually going to take this out of the syllabus once I finish recording, and I apologize for any confusion. But again, I'm honoring the April 27th due date. So you've got over a month to actually do that assignment. Now, if you want to do it right now, go ahead and do it right now and get it out of the way. No shame in that. All right. But yes, from there, I think I've spoken enough, and now I want to let you all get into it. So get into your materials for the week, do your discussion board posts, and yes, get that Mergent worksheet done and use Mergent the entire time, okay? I will be counting off if you are doing things outside of Mergent in order to answer the questions. Don't get me wrong, again, you can Google steps. So if you want to Google how do I find such and such information in Mergent online, if you want to Google the steps, again, these steps, if you want to Google the steps, you can do that. But then you will apply the steps to the database. Use the database to answer the question, okay? And that way you will have a skill set when you finish this class that a lot of people graduating from library science programs throughout the country are not going to have that skill set. You will have gotten your feet wet. You can tell an employer, I have a little bit of knowledge and experience with Mergent, with Business Source Complete, with Mintel, with IBISWorld. These are things that employers want to hear. And so I am giving you that opportunity to have that little bit of experience. I would suggest that you go above and beyond, particularly if you want to be a business librarian, but this is the way we are getting your feet wet. All right, so that is it for me. Go ahead and tackle those assignments. I am Dr. Jace, and because I did not give clear directions in the first week, I am giving grace for those first week worksheets. But then also, again, if you missed some points, and some of you did, just try to make those points up with extra discussion board responses to classmates, okay? All right. Have a good one. I will see you next week with another check-in video, but I will also see you within the class on discussion board posts. Talk to you soon. Later.